Thank you for joining us. You're listening to the St. John's Farmers Market Radio Almanac. This is a show about business and market culture in and around St. John's, Newfoundland. This program is produced and recorded at CHMR FM 93.5 FM in St. John's, Newfoundland and Labrador, and is aired on other great stations in the province and elsewhere in the country. It can also be heard online at www.chmr.ca. I'm your host, Matthew LeDrew, owner and operator at Engine Books, the province's fastest growing independent publisher of books. Well, thank you for joining us for another wonderful episode of the St. John's Farmers Market Radio Almanac. This is a very special episode. We have four amazing authors on the line because coming up on March 20th, 2022, we have a St. John's Farmers Market book fair that we would all like you to come out to. We have four authors on from the very popular hit Land of Many Shores. We have the editor Ainsley Hawthorn on the line. We have Daze Jefferies. We have Gemma Hickey, who also wrote Almost Feral. And we have Paul David Power, who also wrote the play and novel Crippled. So that's a wonderful collection. We've got a bunch of very silly questions to ask them. So thank you all so much for joining me. Paul, if you're writing catalog, if everything you've ever written were somehow through a magical spell transformed into an animal, what animal would that be?
A dolphin.
A dolphin. All right, I gotta know why. That's a new one.
Yeah.
That's a new one.
I was going. Well, because it's gliding. It's moving. It's constant and moved but gracefully,
Nice.
and throughout my writing, it's been a constant moving and creating, but with grace, because a lot of it is so personal and so emotionally healing, and so it's gliding like you glide through life.
That's great. What about you, Daisy?
Daze Jefferies, if through a magical spell, your writingness, your body of work, the part of you that is a writer, was transformed into an animal, what animal would that be?
A jellyfish.
Oh, I like that. Why? I have to know.
Just because they can't be categorized.
Yep.
And there's so much unknown.
Yep.
And they're also dangerous while also being beautiful and alluring. And I think, those themes of danger and risk live within the heart of my work for sure. And I'm fascinated with all sea life, but jellyfish in particular. If it can't be a mermaid, it would be a jellyfish.
Yeah, I've been stung by a jellyfish before. I used to swim. I grew up in a very small rural town, and I used to swim off the shore. And but that's interesting because you said that, and it sparked something in me that I never thought of before. But as it always does when people answer these questions, but like jellyfish, the existence of a jellyfish really implies that one of the first things life on Earth learned evolutionarily was F off. Because a jellyfish has no brain or spine or skeletal structure, but if you come near it, it will indicate to you, no, F off, go away. Like it's the first thing we learned as a collective species.
Right. Setting boundaries.
Yeah. Setting boundaries, exactly. Yeah.
That's great. And what about you, Ainsley?
I would say an owl. Well, I know owls are very popular, but I've always had an affinity for owls after I heard the nursery rhyme as a little girl. There was an old owl who lived in an oak. The more he heard, the less he spoke. The less he spoke, the more he heard. Why can't we all be more like that wise old bird? That really stuck with me as
Clearly.
a young child. Yeah. And I feel like that's what I really enjoy doing as a writer, is listening to people's stories and reading and researching and sussing things out and trying to keep an open mind. So I think of the wise old owl who is just quiet and listening and trying to draw out interesting threads from what she hears. So that would be my animal inspiration.
Excellent. Excellent. I love that answer. Thank you.
Mm.
That's great. What about you, Gemma?
Oh my God. Wow. Oh. The ones that come to mind are wolf
Okay.
and lion.
Okay. That's interesting.
Mhm.
That's not what I was thinking. I don't know why. I rarely have a thing, but and I'm not going to argue with you, but I'm like, no, man, raccoon. Like, I'm just thinking about like just the title, Almost Feral. I'm thinking about like Almost Feral alone turned into a story. It's like, no, this like feisty little, like, I'm going to get mine and I'm going to hiss at you if you try to take it from me, raccoon.
Yeah, no. That's what's coming to mind now.
Wolf and lion are good, powerful. Yeah.
I did see a coyote on the highway, and I was in Turnover Park, and I sat down on the shoulder on a guardrail on the shoulder,
Yeah.
and protein bar. Just took a quick break, and I thought it was a fox in the distance, and it came up and approached me, and it was a coyote. And so, it wasn't in a pack, and I was up higher than the coyote because I was on the guardrail, so I didn't move. I just stared it down, and it walked by me. And
that is terrifying.
Yeah, it's just I literally stared it down, and so that and that's in that portion of the book is where I talk about the title of the book in a kind of a comedic way. I say that I hadn't shaved in a few weeks. I was covered in dust from the highway. I stank. I was sweaty.
You looked unappealing.
And I thought to myself, like, I guess I'm like, it didn't attack me. Like, what was wrong with me? Like, I guess it thought I was as hairy as it was. I was hairy and probably thought it was one of them, and just went on. So I was almost feral, and that's so I joke about the title of the book, but it means so much more. Really, it's about, when you don't fit in society, you don't even have a name for yourself. Really, you don't even have anything to call yourself, or if you're in, you don't know how to identify. Well, do people consider you not civilized? Where do you fit in there? And so, and then it was in the backdrop of all this trees and nature and that kind of thing. So it was that's where I was going with the title. But that's where I joke about the title, because it was really interesting staring it down and not being afraid, not feeling afraid.
I feel like you were so hairy that at that point that the coyote looked at you and was like, I want a meal, not to floss. And then just went away.
Yeah, or like the coyote was scared, so it went away because I was like a Sasquatch or something.
Yeah. That terrifies me because in my experience, like you might think, in my limited experience with coyotes, like you might not see the pack, but there's always a pack. So I'm just like, my heart's racing hearing about this story, going, that one you were chasing down, there were two more on the sides that just decided you weren't worth it.
I know, it was it was pretty wild, but anyway, wild. No pun intended. But yeah, so that's
it's the animal.
That's the animal. I think wolf, or coyote.
Yeah.
I don't know. Lion came to mind too. Just, I feel hairy like a lion now because of the testosterone. So I don't know, but definitely that's what comes to mind.
I could see a lion for you, honestly. It's not, my opinion does not matter in the slightest. These are questions about the author. I don't even know why I'm talking. I end up cutting out my part of the conversation anyway. But like, I could definitely see a lion, like this like wonderful, gentle, strong thing, unless you mess with it. Like, lions seem so nice, like a big cat. Don't poke him with a stick. Don't, you know what I mean? Like, that's like, you'll find out.
There you go.
Yeah. Gemma Hickey, what is your favorite comic book or comic book character, if any?
Superman.
Awesome answer. Why Superman? That came quick. Why Superman?
I think because when I was thinking about the binary as a kid, Superman was who I wanted to be.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay.
I wanted to fly like him. I wanted to be strong like him. I wanted to be handsome. You know, and so I feel like that's he's my favorite superhero, and you know, I first learned of him through comics, and so that's who it would be.
Yeah, I'm loving what they're doing with the Superman comics now. In the this last year, DC's really gone all out and been like leaned heavy into Pride stuff. They've got a whole Pride line, but yeah, the main Superman title is about a bisexual Superman right now, which is
That's amazing. And,
awesome.
And it totally is, you know, and it's like I said. I mean, it's not one way for everyone, you know, in so many ways, right? Like, you know, I mean, even the tights, you know, I could even, you know, if I was Superman, I could deal with that. I mean, my mother used to put me in tights as a kid for a dress and that kind of thing, and I hated them. But if I was Superman, I'd rock those tights. You know what I mean? So I think that was what I envisioned.
There should be a day. There should be one day. There should be one day we should celebrate Superman's birth, like whatever day the first comic came out, by everyone wearing their underwear on the outside for a day. It'll get awkward. It'll get awkward, but we should do it.
Yeah, that would be extremely awkward, but hey, you know,
yeah.
But who knows, right? Like, but honestly, like, I feel like that's what I envision my masculinity to look like, right? Superman embodied.
That makes sense. That is also what I envision your masculinity to look like.
Oh, that's funny.
That's great. And what about you, Ainsley?
Okay. I have not regularly read comics in a while. My favorite comic character when I was a bit younger was Neil Gaiman's Death.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, wonderful character, complicated character.
Yep.
And just very she's aspirational.
Yep.
A character you would like to be. So I think that's going to be my answer. The comics that I've read more recently are autobiographical. So they're things like Guy Delisle's work, Jerusalem, and I mean Jerusalem is outstanding, but he's Pyongyang. He's done a number of great books. So they don't have characters so much to relate to, but are wonderful reads.
Okay, awesome. That's great. Speaking of death, Neil Gaiman's death, that's so hard when he thought to say when he eventually dies, as we all do. We won't be able to say. It's like saying Terry Pratchett's death. You know what I mean? Yeah. But for now, Neil Gaiman's death. I bumped into her reading an issue of Incredible Hulk the other day for some reason. She's randomly in it, and they got permission to use her, and she just shows up at a superhero wedding and goes to the bride and gives her a brush. And it's just a gag because, haha, she had a brush with death. That's it.
Come on. What are you doing? Okay, that's amazing.
That's amazing.
That's great. That's really great. Yeah, somewhere I was her for Halloween a really long time ago. So somewhere I have a picture of me in that makeup, but it doesn't really live up to my current Halloween, to the current level by which I overdo Halloween. If I did death again, I'd have to go all the way.
Do you like Halloween? That's so like I don't understand.
How can you tell? How can you tell?
Yeah. There you go.
So favorite comic book, I really loved the Endless books.
Oh, Sandman.
The Sandman, God, thank you. I have a terrible time with proper names and titles, so this is a problem. They were among the first comic books I got really interested in because a friend of mine in university was reading them, and I just love them. And Neil Gaiman is like a fantastic writer. who draws in folklore and mythology and remixes them in interesting ways. So I really loved those. And I've read a lot of comics since then and graphic novels since then, but I think those still stand out as my favorite. Runner-ups for comics, graphic novels would be, and this is a completely different genre, would be Guy Delisle's books. And he's a French-Canadian whose wife is in Médecins Sans Frontières, Doctors Without Borders. He accompanies her to her postings around the world and has written graphic novels about his experiences in various countries. So he wrote Pyongyang about being in North Korea, and Jerusalem about being in Israel and Palestine. And the books are, what's the other one? Myanmar, I think. Oh no, it'll come to me.
I've read those. They're good. I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, I enjoy them, and Jerusalem in particular, I think, is a really, really fabulous book. And there isn't always a lot of text, but he communicates so much through his artistic renderings of things that he's seeing around him. So I really enjoy those comic books. So they're not traditional; they're memoir comics, but
I enjoy those. In that vein, there's a memoir comic that you should check out. It's not on the same sort of like different culture or something like that, but it's Blankets is
okay.
It's thick, but it won't take you long to get through it. I got through it in an afternoon and stayed up till 3 a.m. because I couldn't put it down. It's very good. It's about someone's going through basically it's about a young man getting over, it's a true story, I should say, by the artist and author. The artist and author are the same person, and it's about him dealing with a sexual assault that he was a victim of as a child, and learning to get over that to have healthy sexual experiences as a teen.
Oh, interesting.
It's basically
okay. I'll have to look that up.
Yeah, it's very interesting, and getting over that in order to have a healthy sexual relationship when he came of age, and it's heartbreaking. And this sounds horrible, but me and my best friend both read it separately, and we had a conversation like this, and he read it, and to him it's a book about sexual assault, and I read it. And a lot of that's confined to the setup, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
To me, it's a story about, like, young love and the tragedy of young love and stuff like that. Like it's the two halves, they're linked, and you don't really realize how they're linked till the end.
Oh, that's interesting. So it's Blankets is the title?
Blankets, yeah. It's
okay.
Yeah.
I'll also look for that. The other really good memoir comic that I have read is Persepolis.
That is also amazing, yeah.
Satrapi, another fantastic book about the early days of of Iran after the Cultural Revolution, the fall of the Shah. But that was a wonderful, wonderful book too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm gonna send you Blankets in a second, actually, because I'm a giant loser. 1 second, and it's not like we don't have lots of time on our hands to read new things, because
yeah, exactly. Oh no, although the number of books I have, I know you're an avid reader, so you probably get through more of the pile than I do, but I'm always, especially at the University Women's Book Sale, I'll come out of that with an arm full of books that I don't read. And I keep telling myself I'll get these read before. If I don't get these read before the next book sale, I'll give them away. But I really want to read them, so I never do that. So I've got a lot of books to work through.
Yeah, absolutely. I understand. I do understand. I am an avid reader, but even me, my to-read pile is just way too long.
That's great. And what about you, Paul?
Paul, what is your favorite comic book character?
See, I'm trying to be clever now and not go with the. I don't know why, but it's always back in the day, Aquaman.
I love Aquaman. That's a new one. Okay, I like Aquaman.
Yeah, and I think it's still the water thing.
Yeah, it's awesome. There's a theme going on here. Like you writing your pilgrimage to the ocean. You like being near the ocean to write. Your writing life, it was an animal, it'd be a dolphin. Your favorite superhero is Aquaman. There's a theme.
There is. It's like, see, I'm more consistent than I think. But
Yeah, big time. That's cool. Yeah, I like Aquaman. Aquaman's good people. Yeah. I'm a huge comic book nerd, so I love asking that question. So I'll either get one of two things. I'll either get I'll be on with an author and I'll ask that question, and I'll get a very like comic books, ew, and then they pretend to be better, and then they'll say some
I couldn't read.
yeah, just they'll name some indie comic I've never heard of. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
yeah, something that makes them sound literary. Or I'll get someone whose eyes light up, and then they go Batman, and then they like go on a tangent about Batman for 30 minutes. It's one or the other.
Yeah, I grew up on comics as well. Yeah, and yeah.
I grew up on comics. See, I would say I grew up on comics, but that implies I've ever grown up. And anyone who knows me knows different. And also, I still read comics to this day. I'm working my way through Silver Surfer right now. Like, yeah.
No, I've never grown up either. Like, I still watch cartoons and all that stuff. And yeah.
Absolutely. By the way, speaking of cartoons, that new Masters of the Universe show, worth watching. Oh my God. Oh yeah. Oh man. I never even watched it growing up. I've never watched any of that before, but there was all these people losing their minds about it online. And the second that part of Twitter gets angry at anything, I'm like, well, I got to see what this is. Because if they're mad, chances are I'm going to love it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah. And sure enough, it's like, it was brilliant.
It was brilliant.
Yeah. Paul, do you view writing as a kind of spiritual practice at all?
Absolutely. Well, yeah, absolutely. But it depends on what I'm writing. You know, definitely Cripple. Definitely pieces I've written on the creative side. You know, I've been paid to write for many, many years, but a lot of the times it was, you know, in the corporate world. Like I wrote, you know, blogs for companies and you know, government, you know, speeches and news releases and all that sort of stuff, which you know, which is a real slog because you're writing, you know, not necessarily what you believe in. So, but when I'm writing something that I truly believe in, whether it be I believe in the story, I believe in the character, or I believe in the situation, it is spiritual and fulfilling. You know, I get lost in this space that is sacred, for lack of a better word, but there's nothing else like it in my life, where I get lost in my own head, but it's action oriented. There's things happening, and I definitely remember early on writing, and I was writing my one of my first plays, and I had an idea about a character to do something, and I took a break, and I was thinking, no, I can't do that. And then it dawned on me, yes, I can. Like, I'm in control of this world. You can do whatever you want, right? And I found that spiritual, because it gave me that sense of, you know, empowerment, that a lot of the times we don't have in our own lives, but I can find it in my writing and creating this world or creating this character, and it fulfills me, you know. And as an artist, I have to get things out in some way, and for me, it's usually the writing.
Awesome. I'm glad. Okay, that's really cool. That's good.
Yeah.
I'm
You're inspiring me now to get you are inspiring me today to get back to that one act I have to do. Yeah.
yeah. No, you got to do that. 100%. Yeah.
That's great. What about you, Daisy?
I do. For me, writing allows me to communicate, you know, an unconscious level of encounter with the environment, with community, and with myself and my own lived history. Writing saves me. It's challenging, it's hard, and it hurts, but it is a saving act for sure.
Love it. That's beautiful. Love it. Okay.
That's great. And what about you, Ainsley?
I've never thought as a spiritual practice, but it's definitely for me mostly an intellectual practice.
Which can be the same
so
thing.
Much. That's an interesting question. I distinguish spirituality from like intellect. I guess the spiritual, mind versus soul, and some people might not view that as two different things. I guess I'm used to thinking of it as two different things. I feel like I need to write because it gives me so much intellectual reward. Like I love digging deep into a problem and trying to sort it out for myself in my own mind and then write about it for other people in a way that's clear and understandable after I've had a chance to kind of digest it and figure out what I think about it myself. So I find it really intellectually satisfying. It's something I can really like dig my teeth into, that pushes me, that pushes my critical thinking. And that's very, very rewarding for me. But I suppose you could say it's also spiritually satisfying because I feel like it's something that I'm meant to do. And without necessarily thinking that, or I have no particular belief in a higher power, so I don't necessarily think that I'm put on earth for a reason. But I think that writing makes the best use of the abilities that I have, and at the same time is so personally satisfying to me that when I've spent a day writing or published a piece that I'm really proud of, I just go to bed feeling so satisfied with myself and with my life and with what I'm doing with my energies. So in that sense, it is really a spiritual practice for me as well. The business side doesn't factor in to the way I think about it, but I do recognize the importance of the business and I spend time on it because you can't write professionally without also selling your work and having to deal with that. But it's not, when I think about writing and what it means to me, that isn't the first place my mind goes.
That's great. What about you, Gemma?
When I was a kid, I wanted to be a priest.
Really?
Yep. I always felt called to God. I say called in quotes,
There you go.
But at the time, like I was assigned female at birth, and that wasn't an option for me. And so eventually I went and joined the United Church. Didn't have a great experience there either. Left institutionalized religion altogether. But my point is that as a kid, when I wrote poetry, it was about God.
Okay.
So I think that for me, some of my foundational writing was very spiritual. And some of my experiences related to my trauma, for example, conversion therapy, being sexually assaulted by a Roman Catholic priest later, when I talk about that later on, in my writing, it's still connected to this idea of God in some form or another. So I feel like, yes, but not in the same way that people would think about spirituality. I think, again, I read poetry every day, usually in the mornings. I find that that poetry is like, they're like prayers to me, that is, the writing is meditative in that way. Like being out in nature, in the same way, an outlet that could potentially be meditative, or, if you will, spiritual.
Yeah. Nice. I like it. Sounds beautiful. I wish I had that gene. I don't have that, or whatever it is that makes people be like spiritual. It's a tool I am missing, from the toolbox.
Well, I don't know if it's spiritual is the right word, or more meditative. I think I think my writing, especially the nonfiction, is connected to, like I said, the idea of God, or and what that means. And I do feel that my advocacy work is my ministry now. Yeah. But I do feel like a spiritual person.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you all four of you for coming on the St. John's Farmers Market Radio Almanac. We really appreciate it.
Everyone out there in Radio Land, please pick up Land of Many Shores as soon as you can at the March 20th book fair, as well as lots of other wonderful books by local publishers and independent writers. Thank you so much and have a wonderful day.